Hello, welcome to the Daily Faded. This is where we get faded daily and talk about the news and politics of the day. As it pertains to getting faded, I have to admit I'm already faded. But I'll keep trying. Welcome to the Daily Faded. Today is September 2nd, 2020. And this is TDF number 91. Dijon, Kizzee, and Daniel Prude rest in power. We'll get to them in a few minutes. Coronavirus cases and deaths update. This is the cheerful part of the show. 26 million cases plus worldwide, 866,000 deaths worldwide, 6.2 million cases in the United States with 39,000 new cases today. So we seem to be plateauing again, much like we plateaued after the first shutdown. We plateaued at around 20,000 new cases a day back then. And then as a result of the reopenings, the caseload started going up. We all know what happened. When we reopened, we had never gotten the daily new cases down below 20,000 cases a day. I think this is one of the fundamental pieces of math in this equation, that we never got the caseload down to where they got it down in, say, for example, European countries, where they got the number down into the 1,000 range, into the several hundred range, and then they started to reopen. So you have an extremely low positivity rate when you get it down that low. But we never did that. So we were ripe for outbreaks, and we sure as hell had them. But now we've got a new plateau. We seem to have plateaued again. Maybe it will keep going down. I don't know. But we seem to have plateaued in the range of 35 to 45. And if we're going to start opening schools when we're plateauing at 35,000 new cases a day, and that's a lot higher than when we plateaued at 20,000 new cases a day and went and reopened, it does not bode well for where we're headed in the next 2 months. I hope I'm wrong. I really do. There were 1,026 COVID-19 deaths today, bringing our total, this is according to NCOV Live, NCOV2019.live, 189,926 deaths. In California, we have the most confirmed cases of any state in the union. 721,321 confirmed cases with 4,672 new cases today. We've had 13,309 deaths in California, with 144 of them coming today. And that 144 number is a pretty high number, and it has been pretty consistent in that range. There have been a couple of days where it's been significantly lower, but we keep going back to that number up in the 140 to 150 to 160 range. Baylor University has had 600 cases of COVID-19. University of South Carolina has had more than 1,000 cases. Tell me how it's a good idea to open schools again. It's just insanity. This country is going off a cliff, my friends. It's going off a cliff. The first death has been reported from the Sturgis motorcycle rally in South Dakota. A man in Minnesota tested positive after attending the event, was hospitalized and died. I think it said he was 60 and had, of course, underlying conditions. I don't think we talked about this, but have you heard this whole thing that Republicans are talking about? Trump said it or tweeted it over the weekend. where they said because only 10% of COVID deaths are 10% of COVID deaths don't involve an underlying condition. So that means 8,000 of the deaths are not involving an underlying condition. And they were misrepresenting it to say that those are the only deaths that are real COVID deaths because all the other ones are because of the underlying conditions. It's completely absurd. It's a completely absurd argument. And of course, Trump made it. And Fauci had to come out and say, well, that's just not true. Of course he did. Of course he did. Oh, man. So Trump pushed the FDA to authorize convalescent blood plasma treatments for COVID-19. Except, of course, he called it blood plasma because he doesn't know how to say plasma. And the NIH, the National Institute of Health panel, I guess, working on this, said there is no sign of efficacy with this treatment. Doesn't work. That's what NIH says. Also, along the lines of authorizing things before they're ready to be used by the public, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has notified public health officials in all 50 states and 5 large cities to prepare to distribute a coronavirus vaccine to healthcare workers and other high-risk groups as soon as late October or early November. So, I mean, we said it the other day, right, that obviously Trump is going to release a vaccine or something, do something to the effect of, look, it's the Trump vaccine for the election day. And this just makes it obvious. This just makes it completely obvious that that's what they're going to do. So I think that we have to be prepared for it, and we have to have a good response to it. And look, I think the big thing to know is if they didn't finish their phase 3 clinical trials, then it's not safe to take. And I'm not an anti-vaxxer, but I'm not going to take the Trump vaccine if it's been rushed out to the public. It's insanity. And I don't know. I don't think a vaccine announcement will make that big of a difference. Maybe we'll see. I don't think it'll make that much of a difference because everyone will know that it was rushed. People will feel like it is untested. People have not trusted the government's response on coronavirus. People do not trust Trump on coronavirus. All the polling indicates this. So are they suddenly going to go, oh, yeah, he's the good guy. Oh, yeah, the Trump vaccine. The Trump vaccine. That's the way to go. I don't see it happening. New Reuters poll today had some interesting tidbits. Only about 8% of American adults listed crime as a top priority for the country, compared with 30% who said it was the economy or jobs, and 16% who said it was healthcare. So Donald Trump is running on an 8% issue. And I'll bet you he already has all 8%. I bet you he already has that group locked up for the Trump vote. So how do you expand? If Donald Trump can turn that number into, well, I mean, I'm sorry. I just was about to imagine Donald Trump doing something intelligent. Yeah. Anyway, I was going to give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt. And I just don't know if giving Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt is a good idea. I don't think it is a good idea. So no, Donald Trump, you don't get the benefit of the doubt. I never did remember what it was. I just forgot. So that should be my. Anyway, sorry for that delay. I got a little bit lost in my notes here. So 62% of registered voters, including 62% of Democrats and 65% of Republicans, said crime was not increasing in their communities. That is a very large number. According to the poll, 53% of American adults said they remain sympathetic to people out protesting against racial inequality, nearly unchanged from 52% in a similar poll that ran in late July. None of this polling is good for Donald Trump. And however, this tweet is good for Donald Trump. Actually, let me do some more polling and then I'll go to this Nate Silver tweet. Fox News polls came out today. Arizona, Biden 49%, Trump 40%. So that is Joe Biden up 9 points in Arizona. Wisconsin, Biden 50%, Trump 42%. So that is Joe Biden up 8% in Wisconsin. And North Carolina, Biden 50%, Trump 46%. So that is up 4% in North Carolina. Those are all decent numbers. I'd like that North Carolina number to get bigger. The Arizona number is big, and the polling out of Arizona has been around 10 points up for the last week or two. Wisconsin has had some mixed polling, so that's good to see. And I actually think that North Carolina polling is pretty consistent too. So Nate Silver tweeted something today, which was quite viral on Twitter. And I'm not sure that I can properly represent this without being able to show you the tweet on the screen, which of course I haven't figured out yet, but it's coming soon, I promise. Chance of a Biden electoral college win if he wins the popular vote by X amount of points. If Joe Biden wins by 0 to 1 point, he has a 6% chance of winning the electoral college, according to Nate Silver. 1 to 2 points in the popular vote, and he has a 22% chance of winning the electoral college. 2 to 3 points in the popular vote, and he has a 46% chance. 3 to 4 points in the popular vote, and he has a 74% chance to win the electoral college. And then as it goes 4 and up, it's 89 and 98 and 99%, up to a 7-point margin. So not only was this trending, but electoral college was trending. And I think, sometimes I don't have a particularly nuanced or complex take on things. And one of them is the Electoral College. It's an instrument of white supremacy. That's all it is. It was put in there for slave owners. And we need to get rid of it. It's an artifact of everything that's wrong with this country. And we just need to get rid of it. We need to stamp it out. Obviously, someone in Wyoming having their vote count more than someone in California, which, you can find these studies that show based on how many people vote in your state, how many electoral college votes you get versus what the population is. Then they rank how much your vote counts, and people in smaller population states, their votes count more. So it's just a terrible system. It's a terrible system, and it's stunning that the Democrats, having been screwed by it twice, still do not talk about electoral college abolition, because that is what we need, is abolition of the electoral college. Today was boring Trump, boring Biden day. I watched both of them do one public event. I think each of them did one public event today. And Biden was talking about how to reopen schools in COVID era, and it was totally boring. It was fine. He didn't eat his own feces on stage or anything like that, but it was fine. But it was not interesting. And I thought the journalists had asked uninteresting questions. I don't know if they were journalists or if it was a town hall. It was kind of weird. It was hard to tell with all the social distancing. It was hard to tell how things were working there. And then Trump spoke in front of the USS North Carolina in Wilmington, North Carolina, and he just droned on and on about the military, and it was boring as well. So boring Biden, boring Trump, but of course. Oh, and then there was Bill Barr, who gave an interview to Wolf Blitzer, and I will neither watch Wolf Blitzer nor will I watch Bill Barr, so I don't know much about that interview. I know one thing about it, which I'll mention in a second. Donald Trump couldn't stay boring all day. He told voters to vote twice today in North Carolina. Quote, well, they'll go out and they'll go vote, and they're going to have to go and check their vote by going to the poll and voting that way. Because if it tabulates, then they won't be able to do that, Trump said on the tarmac in front of Air Force One. So let them send it in and let them go vote. And if the system is as good as they say it is, then obviously they won't be able to vote. If it isn't tabulated, they won't be able to vote. So that's the way it is. And that's the way they should do. That's the way they should do. This man doesn't speak English. He's literally telling his supporters to vote twice. It's so irresponsible. Guys, today's news was not all that interesting. Like any specifics anything that came out today, it was filler. All the news was filler today. No one was doing anything interesting. I mean, there was plenty of news, but there just wasn't anything that felt like new news, you know? And I just felt worn out and tired from following the news too closely over the last, I don't know, couple of years, specifically the last several months. This thing of Trump telling people to vote twice is so far gone. It's so far gone. And it's so antithetical to democracy. To just go out and tell people to cheat. To accuse people of whom there's no evidence they cheated, to accuse them of cheating. And to then just go out and tell your people to cheat. What? I'm becoming like, get off my lawn, you kids. Because I'm like, what is this? What is this? What? I always have to remind myself the country was further gone than I thought it was a long time ago. And that's true. That's true. So the one thing I do know about Bill Barr's interview is that he couldn't bring himself to say that people shouldn't vote twice. He didn't want to contradict Trump, clearly. So, and this is a random note. Night 4 of the RNC garnered the lowest viewed acceptance speech by any candidate for either party since 1952, the first time the conventions were televised. Conservatives are arguing that this is a disingenuous fact because so many people streamed it. And you have to add that to the television audience. And I say, suck it, conservatives. I do think this matters. It's true that more people get their politics online now and fewer people watch it on TV. But a lot of people still watch it on TV. So the fact that Trump got such low viewership for his big speech is a very good thing. Okay, moving on. A lot to talk about. So we haven't yet gotten to the story of Dijon Kizzee in Los Angeles, Westmont, Los Angeles. Dijon Kizzee was shot and killed by LA County sheriffs. The sheriff account. This is from the LA Times. The encounter Monday afternoon began when two sheriff's deputies from the South Los Angeles station spotted a man later identified by the coroner as Dijon Kizzee, riding a bicycle in violation of vehicle codes, according to Lieutenant Brandon Dean. Dean said he didn't know which codes Kizzee was allegedly violating. Deputies attempted to contact Kizzee, but he dropped the bicycle and ran north on Budlong Avenue for a block, with deputies in pursuit, Dean said. Deputies again tried to make contact in the 1200 block of West 109th Place, and Dean said Kizzee punched one of them in the face. Kizzee then dropped a jacket he had been carrying, and a black handgun fell to the ground, officials said. The sheriff's department said Tuesday evening that Kizzee made a motion toward the gun, and the deputies opened fire, killing him. Dean said he did not know how many times Kizzee was shot. Sheriff's officials said a handgun was recovered at the scene. So that's the sheriff's story. Obviously, it leaves a lot to be desired from a standpoint of understanding how a guy who was stopped for a bike violation is dead. What are they doing? They're monsters. They're monsters. So some videos were released today. A grainy but graphic video of the encounter obtained by the LA Times shows a physical altercation between Kizzee and the deputies before Kizzee tries to get away and falls to the ground. At that point, two deputies open fire multiple times. A wall and fencing obscure the full scene, including where Kizzee's jacket falls. A separate video reviewed by the Times showed Kizzee walking away from deputies moments earlier. The same video then cuts to deputies with guns drawn over his body. So I saw one of these two videos today, and it was really hard to make out what was happening, other than the guy was clearly trying to get away. And when they say that he tussled with the police, with the cops, the sheriffs, whatever you call them, whatever you call them, no one knows what to call them anymore. I'll call them cops. He's clearly trying to get away. There's the little altercation that happens between him and the cops. He's clearly trying to get away. You can't see it well enough to know whether or not he actually punched the cop in the face. But one of the eyewitnesses said it didn't happen, that he wasn't aggressive towards the cop and didn't punch the cop in the face. And they said he definitely didn't point a gun at the cops, and that they were shocked by the violence. Deputies essentially executed a man riding his bicycle, Naji Ali, a community activist, said Tuesday, while standing with several of Kizzee's relatives at the scene of the shooting. Balloons were tied to memorial candles on the sidewalk, marking the spot where Kizzee died. They'll say he had a gun, but what they won't say was that he was not armed with the gun. He did not point the gun, Ali said. There was no reason for deputies to shoot a running man. Black Lives Matter Los Angeles are now demanding the names of the cops who shot Dijon Kizzee, which have not yet been released. This was a guy riding a bike. And they said that he committed some sort of moving violation on a bike. There is absolutely no reason why Dijon Kizzee should be dead right now. This is a complete and total outrage. My blood pressure, I can feel it going up. The LA Sheriff's Department is rotten to the fucking core. There is definitely racism in the LA Sheriff's Department. Oh shit, I just heard a story the other day about one of the gangs in the Sheriff's Department, but I can't remember what it was. Sorry. They have these gangs in the Sheriff's Department. I mean, it's I'm going to get to something in the next story. This is from the AP News. Video in black man's suffocation shows cops put hood on him. A black man who had run naked through the streets of a western New York City died of asphyxiation after a group of police officers put a hood over his head, then pressed his face into the pavement for 2 minutes, according to video and records released Wednesday by the man's family. Daniel Prude died March 30th after he was taken off life support 7 days after the encounter with police in Rochester. His death received no public attention until Wednesday when his family held a news conference and released police body camera video and written reports they obtained through a public records request. So here we go again. Here's another story of someone who should probably be alive today. The videos show Prude, Daniel Prude, who had taken off his clothes, complying when police asked him to get on the ground and put his hands behind his back. Prude is agitated and shouting as officers let him writhe as he sits on the pavement in handcuffs for a few moments as a light snow falls. "Give me your gun, I need it," he shouts. Then they put a white spit hood over his head, a device intended to protect officers from a detainee's saliva. At the time, New York was in the early days of the coronavirus pandemic. Prude demands they remove it, trying to kill me, he says, before making muffled, anguished sounds under the hood. Then the officers slam Prude's head into the street. One officer holds his head down. Trigger warning. Sorry, I should have said that before. One officer holds his head down against the pavement with both hands, saying, "Stop spitting," as Prude's shouts turn to whimpers and grunts. Another officer places a knee on his back. The officers appear to become concerned when they notice water coming out of Prude's mouth. "My man, you puking?" one says. Prude stops moving and falls silent. One officer notes that he's been out naked in the street for some time. Another remarks he feels pretty cold. His head had been held down by an officer for just over 2 minutes, the video shows. Medics can then be seen performing CPR before he's loaded into an ambulance. Spit hoods have been scrutinized as a factor in the deaths of several prisoners in the U.S. and other countries in recent years. A medical examiner concluded that Prude's death was a homicide caused by complications of asphyxia in the setting of physical restraint. The report lists excited delirium and acute intoxication by phencyclidine, or PCP, as contributing factors. Mental illness and addiction should not be policed. They should be treated. It's really simple. Don't police the mentally ill. Treat the mentally ill. Don't police addiction. Treat addiction. It's so fundamentally simple. And this is absolutely about the criminalization of Black bodies. Let's not forget in this story of Daniel Prude that he is naked and he's high on PCP and he's probably having an acute mental situation. It certainly sounds like it when he's on the ground writhing in handcuffs naked and he asks for their gun. That is certainly not sane behavior. This sounds like a person in need of help, of professional mental health care. But again, it's about the criminalization of Black bodies. He was probably considerably worse off because of the fact that he was undressed. My God. I know a lot of people who have struggled with addiction and mental illness. During this pandemic, I have lost a friend to suicide. And mental illness is deadly important. It's so important. And as I tweeted at my congressperson today, who is going to go down and be replaced by Angelina Duenas. This is in California 29th District. If you happen to be in California 29th, you have to vote for Angelica Duenas. But as I tweeted at my congressperson today, who tweeted about mental health, I tweeted at him, if you don't support universal health care, then you don't support mental health. And he doesn't support Medicare for all. So fuck him. He's going down. And he's so douchey. He takes a lot of defense industry money. There's no defense industry in this. Well, there might be some in this district, but this is a working class district, a working class majority people of color district, majority Latinx, and he does not represent the interests of this congressional district. But mental health has to be treated, not policed. I placed a phone call for my brother to get help, not for my brother to get lynched, Prude's brother Joe Prude said at a news conference Wednesday. How did you see him and not directly say, the man is defenseless, buck naked on the ground. He's cuffed up already. Come on. How many more brothers gotta die for society to understand that this needs to stop? How many more brothers got to die for society to understand that this needs to stop? I don't know how many more times the conscience of America has to be shocked by pictures of black men and women and people of color being gunned down by police. How many more Sandra Blands? How many more Tamir Rice? Philando Castile, George Floyd, Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin. How many more? Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Daniel Prude, Dijon Kizzee. Thank you guys for watching. Keep the peace. Stay safe. Wear a mask. I will see you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock on the Daily Faded. Make sure you hit subscribe, like, and notifications.